Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
Adam Cook was the high school football coach and very successful at White House High School. He joins us on 365 Sports. He is now in the insurance business. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. Hey, Adam, what are you doing, Coach? How you been?
Been great, David.
Thank you so much for having me on here today. Right?
Yeah, you're muted, Coach.
I'm muted.
There you go.
There you go.
How have you been?
I've been good. Been doing really, really well. Staying busy here. And my oldest son is a junior at A&M, and my youngest one is a junior here at White House High School. And so been busy, but having a lot of fun watching Patrick Mahomes, throughout his career, and excited about talking to you guys today about it.
Well, there's a picture, a large one behind your left shoulder, and I think there's a jersey 5 in the background. That is one of those that I'm sure you're proud to have up in your house.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You see, that's my youngest one there, Caleb, in number 5, and of course, that was Patrick's high school number that he wore, and then Caleb over here, he's got that one on. It's funny, 5 was a number that our kids would wear and like before Patrick came along and made it so infamous.
All right, so he wasn't the quarterback until his junior year? Is that when the transition began? Was it his sophomore year? Tell us the story.
Yeah, so Patrick grew up playing both quarterback and safety. When Patrick was a sophomore, we had a gentleman here by the name of Hunter Taylor, who went and played at Stephen F. Austin, a very good quarterback in his own right. And so, for that reason, Patrick was such a great athlete, and Coach McFarland, head coach, was a great defensive mind, and he loved to take those young guys like that and put them there. Trey McTwire, who was a big-time receiver for us, actually played on the defensive side as well. And so his sophomore year, he was a starting safety for us. And, then, of course, the next year he comes in and plays quarterback. His best friend, Ryan Cheatham, and he were kind of competing for the spot. It was important to me that they competed for that spot. And, because in his own right, Ryan Cheatham could have been a Division I quarterback in my mind. He was a lot like Brady Attaway, David, who you're very familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
Hunter, who played that same way, too. And, so they battled it out. In the Sulphur Springs game, it was maybe the second or third game. I think it was the third game of the season that year. Patrick was starting. It was raining. And, you're in one of those games like that, and everything seems to be going pretty good for you. Ball slick, and you don't want to make a change at that point. And so it was at that point that I decided, hey, we're just going to kind of roll out here. And at that point, Patrick kind of took off with it. Sonny Cumbie was there that night at the game. He was there actually to see Dylan Cantrell. Yep. And I remember at the end of the game, Sonny said, people are going to know who Patrick Mahomes is now after this. And then, of course, after the game, we're in the locker room, and Ryan Cheatham is one of my favorite players, one of the national championships baseball player here at UT Tyler. And I remember him, talking, and he's crying. He's like, Coach, it's my pride, and I said, I understand, son, but again, it was great to see those guys compete like that. And then you see Patrick to go on in his career, and he's had to do nothing but compete and beat people out. And he hasn't ever been afraid to, go against someone and beat them out.
Coach, were you surprised? I know, like his recruitment, there's some legend around it as far as under-recruited and all that. How do you feel like the reality of that story is? And if he was under-recruited, in your opinion, did it surprise you that maybe he didn't get the attention that you felt he deserved?
That's a great question. I get asked this question a whole lot. And, at that time, there were so many quarterbacks who were, coming into play college football that had been playing years in minor league baseball and tried to go that route. There was TCU who had, signed a quarterback, and then he ends up going to play baseball. And so, Craig, I think that you can't talk through that without, giving those coaches a little bit of grace in that, they were probably not willing to offer somebody who they knew was going to be good because they didn't know if they were going to have him, or their head coach didn't want to do that. But people that came by knew Patrick could play. There was never any, scout that came by that didn't recognize the kind of talent that he had. I think it was just the risk of, is he going to go play baseball like his dad? And so I think that was a lot of it. Cliff, you mentioned him earlier, and at the time, B.J. Anderson was on that staff. Gentleman is from Van, very familiar with this area, that was there coaching with him at A&M. And as Cliff tells the story, he's the one who showed him the film on Patrick, and then he kind of got high on him. Well, Terry Price was the one who recruited our area for A&M. And each coach has their own way that they do it. I think Major Applewhite went and he saw every quarterback that he recruited. Didn't matter. He didn't just stay in his area of the state or the nation or anything like that. And so really we didn't ever see Cliff until Cliff got the job at Texas Tech. And at that point, immediately his focus went to White House, Texas. And, he went all in on him when everybody else was kind of worried about, hey, is he going to go this route? And it took that young guy who had just gotten his first crack at being a college coach. Well, I'll try this. And he did. And, then he gets to take him under his wing and help develop him in his quarterback and help get him to where he's at today.
So I've been able to watch a lot of great high school games over the years, but 2012, White House and John Tyler, Rose Stadium, Greg Ward, who I think he's still hanging around the NFL at this point, was quarterback for JT. They also had some other great Division I and NFL players like Bowser. Patrick obviously leading the way there at White House. Can you give me your perspective on that game? I know it didn't end the way you guys wanted it to, but that is still one of, if not the top high school games out of the thousands that I've been to that I've ever seen. The collection of talent, the drama. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, that's great too, Paul. A lot of people don't realize the amount of talent that was on the field that night. Because again, Dylan Cantrell was a part of our team. We had Justin Dunning at that time. That was a young kid, great recruit, at A&M, and there was a lot of talent out there. And so what I remember is we jump out early and we get some points on them, and we just kind of putter out, in the second half. I remember, we were trying to stop Bowser. That kid was all over the field, sideline to sideline. And y'all know we were a fast up tempo, running screens like crazy. And I remember going to Bowser at the end of the game and saying, man, we tried to wear you out, but we just couldn't do it. And he was what a great competitor. And Greg Ward that you mentioned, a great football player. But there was a lot of talent on the field that night. And it was probably, without a doubt, the most talent that I had been as a coach involved in a game with that much talent out there on the field. And again, we've had Trey Batoye and some of those guys, but that night there was a lot of talent out there on that field. And I just remember we couldn't wear out Tyus Bowser. We were trying to do everything we could to.
Yeah, the shootouts at Trinity Mother Frances Rose Stadium and that setting and whatever else. Adam, was there ever a time when he became the starter and then, of course, stayed the starter in high school where he lost any kind of confidence or had any kind of maybe bumps in the road?
No, I don't think so. Patrick lost 3 games in his high school career. He lost that game that you're talking about there his junior year against Cujo by 7 points. We lose to Wiley East by 5 points. And then, of course, the next year, Poteet. So Patrick lost 3 games. And, never really can think of anything that he had that really set him back. I mean, there were times where we were down. When you run the kind of offense that we ran, we're running so many plays, it puts your defense in a bit of a bind sometimes. And so sometimes you're playing from behind and trying to play catch up and all. But there were several games where he was behind. I mean, I can remember, so Cliff came, talking about Cliff, he came to the Carthage game, Patrick's senior year. And that, of course, was a huge game. There were a lot of different college coaches in there that wanted to see that. And I think we were down by 5 maybe at the half. And it was a pretty tight game when we go on to win 63-39, and Patrick just put it on. Scott Surratt was one of my junior high coaches. Love Scott Surratt. When I got the head coaching job, he was actually the first one that calls me, and Cookie only in America. And Patrick Mahomes, you guys know what kind of a legend Scott Surratt is. And Patrick Mahomes has beat him twice. And every time that I see Scott and it comes up about that, he brings up Patrick and Patrick being able to beat him and all.
He was, and the ratings from days back before there were a lot of websites or even internet, Max Empinger used to have the ratings books, and now you have 5 or 6 or God knows how many. He was rated, he was known, but did anyone ever call you that had those rating services, or did you ever contact any of them about him being a 3-star and not higher?
Yeah, that's a great question, David. And I have been quoted as saying this, and you can quote me on this. Whoever that guy is that gave those stars out needs to be fired. I have no idea who he is or what he's watching. But to answer your question, I was never contacted or anything like that. Of course, I remember going to Allen when the Nike Spark Combine was going on, and Patrick being a part of that. And I can remember just watching from the stands. Davis Webb, I think, was there. The Brown kid that went to Alabama was there. The Adams safety was there, and there was a lot of talent there. And I just remember that in that setting that they weren't able to really see what Patrick could do. He's not the prototypical, West Coast quarterback, and then seeing him in those drills isn't where you're going to see what Patrick's able to do. And there's so many intangibles on there that really it's hard for those guys, whoever it is that's getting the stars on there, to be able to determine what that is. Manny Diaz came through one time, and we were talking about this very thing. And, of course, they're at Texas, and they're struggling because, they won a national championship, and all of a sudden there's all this hype because they got all these star guys. You're getting all the 5-star guys. And he made the comment that, these guys, you get these stars a lot of times during the spring when you hadn't even played a game of football. You go run around a cone, really, really fast and get a better vertical jump or something like that, and then all of a sudden you get them. But I really don't know at that time how they were doing it and how they were setting them up, but that guy definitely needs to be fired.
Adam Cook, White House High School, was a coach there when Patrick Mahomes' senior year, and of course had coached in East Texas for quite some time.
Coach, so pre-Patrick, were the Chiefs on your radar at all? And now after you coach a guy, and you've coached other players that have had opportunities, how do you watch NFL football or college football with guys that you have coached? And obviously you have some fandom there because you were part of this development.
Yeah, all right. So before Patrick, I always liked players, Craig. I never did have a certain team, and I know, you guys love the Cowboys, and I'm not saying I don't love the Cowboys. I love John Elway, watching John Elway and Troy Aikman, of course. But there were players that I liked until Patrick, ended up getting with the Chiefs. And, at that point, that kind of changed everything for us. My mother loves the Chiefs. She's going to watch them every time. I mean, she'll turn on the NFL Network and watch these other games, which we know what's going to happen. And she's telling me exactly what's going to happen. And, she was never had a team or anything like that. But, Coach Gold, who was our defensive coordinator and ended up being who I hired as the football coach when I became the AD, he brought up a good point during this process. And his brother said, you know what, the Chiefs come from Texas, so we can root for them. So, once that was brought to my attention, then, yeah, we became Chiefs fan. Been to a couple games up there to see the Chiefs play. And, if you go there and you're able to do the tailgating, it's just such a great atmosphere. It's such a regional team. A lot of those states and areas up there, that's who they have. They have the Chiefs. So they're driving in from Iowa. You see people from Montana, tags from Montana, and just they come from everywhere, and it's really a great fan base, and very much like a college team, the way that they follow them. And at this point, we're big Chiefs fans, and getting to learn some of the Chiefs history, and some of the players that they've had has been great. Hearing we had never won a home game in so long, we got this curse. Well, that was the first game that we went to, is when they were playing a playoff game there. And I told all the guys that kept calling me from Kansas City, I said, I'm coming to that game. Like, Patrick's fixing to break this. Like, I hear what y'all are saying. You hadn't won it. You think you got this curse, but I want to be there. It was 20 degrees, I think, or below. Wind chill was like -5. And it was freezing. But, I went. My uncle went with me, my wife, my father-in-law, my 2 boys, and we had a blast. And since then, we've been great Chiefs fans.
Okay, so you hear about when a player, even though he came into the NFL from Tech and playing with Kingsbury, that the NFL scouts or whoever will look into the history of a player, whether or not he had a broken toe when he was 5 years old. Did any of the NFL scouts or anybody from other teams contact you asking you about him or anything about him when they were closing in on the draft or from the combine to the draft?
Yeah, another great question. I had a few surveys that I filled out. I remember the one for the Green Bay Packers. I remember there was a survey that I had to fill out for the Raiders, and I can remember showing the players, like, hey, they look at these things. You bring up a great point there. That's the thing that was, I felt like a great teaching tool for young kids who think that they want to go play in NFL. Look, guys, they're watching every single thing that you do. But I got one phone call, and the only phone call that I got was actually from the Cardinals. And of course, that's interesting for, then Cliff to wind up there. And, talk was about, home life. What was this, things with his parents, and I said, probably out of all the divorced parents I've seen, I've never seen a group of parents, a pair of parents, support their family like those two did. The way that they were at everything, and, great family stability. They wanted to know, of course, about his grades. And then it led into the, type of quarterback that he was, and the up-tempo offense he was running, and the program quarterbacks, the tags that were put on him. And so then we kind of went into some schematic things. And it was very interesting because I could sense then at that point that the Cardinals were open to, some revolutionizing, these long name plays that they have, and of course with Tech and with things we did, it's just one name, a mascot, and just so quick, so simple. And so that was the only conversation, David, that I had with anybody was with their GM there at the Cardinals.
Well, right now he's, of course, marinating or decompressing from the season. How often do you get the chance to visit with him, or has he been able to come back and kind of let everyone, hey, by the way, I'm from White House. I'm proud to be from White House.
Yeah, great question, too. Patrick's been pretty busy here the last few years, having kids and things like that, and getting to go to Disneyland, Disney World after winning Super Bowls. And so Patrick comes by some. I think he was here maybe last year, the year before he came by, gave some shoes to the kids and things like that. But he lives on such a different planet, David.
No, I know.
I think that anybody else, he's so recognizable. I mean, it's hard for him to hide in a crowd. I mean, you see the hair. Of course, he's cut the hair now after the loss, but, it's so easy to identify. When Jackson was playing basketball, when he was still in school, we would see Patrick quite a bit. When he could, he would come to basketball games. He'd throw his hoodie on and kind of sneak in, and I'd say, hey, man, just call up here, and I can get you in the back door here. But he lives on such a different planet than anybody else. It's hard to get there. The last time that I actually was in the same room as Patrick was actually when in the first Super Bowl, when he won the after the game, they had the press conference with the MVP.
Right.
And Sam Farmer from the LA Times took my wife and I around, and we had a great time. Sam Farmer's a great guy, a great friend now. And he made sure that I was in there. And just getting to be there and be in the moment, and I remember telling Julie, I'm not getting that phone out. I'm just going to watch Patrick and just to listen to him as they asked the MVP, of the Super Bowl, these questions. It was a great honor to be in there. But that's actually the last time that I was in the same room with him.
Well, it's amazing what he's done, and with hopefully many more years and possibly championships to come. It's a no-brainer. He came out of a decade, though, Coach, of Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, and he's the one that's going to be representing that decade, 2010 to 19. That's an incredible list. Those guys won state titles, some of them multiple times. Your thoughts about the competition, but also the fact he's going in tomorrow night to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think that they made the right decision. Those other guys are very worthy of it. Great competitors. You've got Baker who walked on at Tech and, always has played with this chip on his shoulder, and, great leader, great competitor. You've got Kyler who won, multiple state championships, as you mentioned, has greater stats probably than any other quarterback to ever play here in the state of Texas. And, but I think that they got it right with the one who in my mind is without a doubt the best quarterback I feel like that's ever played in Texas or really anywhere. David, he's changed the game. I mean, it's not, he's totally changed the way that quarterbacks play, the way that people recruit. They're not, I mean, after Patrick, people were always in there, looking. They're not going to leave any stone unturned because, I'm sure a lot of guys caught a lot of heck when they get in the offices with their coaches and, hey, how did you miss out on him? Why didn't you tell me about this Mahomes kid, And then now just, again, the way that they're playing the game, you got RG3 that's going to be inducted with him as well. And someone who extended the play, but in a different way than what Patrick has done. Like, he's the one who, like, he's still got his eyes down the field as he's scrambling and looking. He's looking to make that throw right when he gets to the line of scrimmage, And, I think he's totally changed the game. Those other guys will one day be in there. As I'm saying this, David, I want to say congratulations to you as well. And, what you've done here in the state of Texas for football and covering. And, I mean, just me being able to watch you over the years and what you've done, I'm very excited for Patrick and to him to be going in with somebody like yourself, Jeff Traylor, RG3, and it's exciting time.
Tell us about Dub Advocates. You're no longer in coaching. You're now in the insurance business.
Yes, sir, I am. I'm in the public insurance business. My best friend from high school owned a public adjusting firm, and we were out in California for a birthday for one of my high school friends. My brother, of course, is the athletic director at Oaks Christian in the Malibu area. Brad's there. Brad was my offensive coordinator, coached the offensive line when I was the OC and coaching quarterbacks. And we were out there visiting, and he said, hey, man, if you ever think about getting out of coaching, whatever, you need to come into public adjusting. And, when I made the move to the AD, I got out of coaching, and I missed it. I missed the kids. I knew that I would. My mother lives here, and, there's other family reasons and why you make those kind of decisions. But we sold a house at the time, and I thought, man, now may be the time. And so I run a public adjusting firm. I work in 9 different states. I do a lot of work in South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Washington, and Idaho. And I actually work for the homeowners. So, Patrick, his State Farm, whenever I work on the other side. So I'm not the insurance adjuster that works for the insurance company. I work for the homeowner, and been doing that now for about 3 years.
Thank you, man. Good to see you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Adam Cook, former high school football coach of Patrick Mahomes. Adam Cook with us on 365 Sports. Kingsbury would not let go, but there were others. I remember, I've said this story before, where Pat, his dad, who was an incredible